Hello and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Revolution podcast, sponsored by Jointflows. Today we are doing another plug. We've had huge requests to do another one. It's not that we didn't want to do it, but we've been very busy. We've also had a few holidays. And so it's great to get back doing one of these sessions. How are you, Mick?
I am very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So we've done a lot. We've got a lot to talk about as well. So big strides in the Jointflows world, which is great. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about conversations we're having with prospects, things that we're trying at the top of the funnel, as well as within the funnel as well, and a few other bits and bobs as well. I guess a good starting point is probably that we have got somebody in the business, a new recruit.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Tom?
Well, it's very exciting, because it tells a lot about, I think, the opportunity. And the guy is smart because this for him is risk-free. There's to be completely transparent, this is fully paid on commission and it's massively chunky. So we're giving about half of the deal to this person essentially as soon as that deal converts. And given the conversion rate we've got and the sales cycle duration we're currently seeing, it's gonna make more money than we do quite easily. Because he doesn't have to reinject anything into the business. So a fair play for him is positioning making his moves early on, and then if he works out well, then he's got a great job title. He's got the ability to set up everything from scratch. Well, we did some stuff already, but change stuff and make it his own, and then call it his success. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with the lad before. What a guy. Elite performance in my time working with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do here. Yeah, for our listeners, expect some phone calls coming from him. Be nice to him if you can. So yeah, that's it. It's exciting to have him in there. I think it also speaks a lot about the amount of activity that we're doing, not just from a prospection point of view, but just through the wider business as well. And the amount of bandwidth that we've had, that it actually made sense to get somebody to focus specifically on outreach like this, which is good. And it's actually it's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm hoping the top of the funnel continues to fill up nicely. So yeah,
Nice,
excited.
It's very exciting.
Other than that, we have also started to experience some expansion opportunities as well, which is really exciting from our perspective, but then equally validates our product, right? So people are seeing value in it. Some people are proactively introducing Jointflows to their wider team, which is great to see as well, because they're seeing the benefit and they're realizing that their counterparts, if you're on the servicing side of the business, you're seeing that your new biz counterpart could probably benefit as well, and vice versa, which is great to see as well. Talk a little bit about that. Why do you think these expansion opportunities are coming about?
Well, I think I've learned about the term network effect I knew the words, but I didn't know how it applied to SaaS. And we've always known that because of the nature of the tool and what we're building, which is essentially resource orchestration, team alignment, stakeholder alignment, but through automation and like a project management style, that having one type of user would always expose us to having different types of users. And when I was speaking about types of users, I was speaking about people in different departments. So if you take a sales process, for instance, and you just have the sales team, and this team has to rely on supporting teams like a customer success or a solution consultant or a value consultant or a legal team or security team, then the orchestration exposes them to Jointflows. And then if they want to optimize their work, then they kind of have to live in Jointflows eventually. What I didn't expect was for this to happen really as early as within the first 2 months, really, of the life cycle of the client. And we had clients saying like, we want everyone on Jointflows as soon as possible. So those are our champions, obviously, and they've got skin in the games, and they're really helpful as well as being quite a strong advocate for the value proposition. But they want this to happen because it's just much simpler to then operate. So that's the first thing. And then the second signal I was very surprised by was the amount of, not legacy, but like strategic tech we actually end up replacing. So I think in one of the earlier episodes, we spoke about getting rid, this client is getting rid of some Salesforce licenses, because not everybody needs to be in Salesforce. And if you use Salesforce for task management, then it's pretty poor, like usually. So there's quite a lot of saving because we're not charging nearly as much as what Salesforce costs. And the second one was Asana. So a lot of project management is done through usually like creating some sort of tickets in usually like an Asana, Trello, or Jira.
Yeah.
But that's not revenue focused. Like you never have that then linked to your ability to deliver a piece of revenue within specific timeframes, and then prioritizing those revenue opportunities all at once without the cumulative amount of project at the same time. So it's like having just one string and then just putting one string at a time and then trying to see what that string is linked to. Whereas Jointflows is just like, it's a box where everything is linked together and you just choose what to prioritize. So that was new, and I was like, well, yeah, actually it does make sense, because your project only works well if it actually delivers revenue. But if you don't have that revenue built into the project management tool you're using, and if it's not connected with like a forecasting tool or whatever, it's pretty useless.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the term project management for revenue teams is something that I'm seeing as resonating a lot with prospects as well as like the clients that we're speaking to as well. And it's quite interesting because I do feel that, you know, if I think even like 3-4 months ago, I don't necessarily think that term was resonating as much as it is now, but it seems to be striking a chord. And I think a lot of it is aligned with, you know, a lot of companies have got a mandate to reduce the number of tools that they've got in their arsenal, right? And so everyone wants to become more efficient with less tools, and being a project management tool for revenue, as to your point, you know, has put us in a position where we can start to displace more than one tool, and therefore you automatically start to reduce that tech stack as well. And then just on the other thing with the expansion, it's interesting when you said you didn't think it would happen as quick as it had, because I know it was one of the hypotheses that we had relatively early on when we thought about the product, even in the early days, is, you know, I think like once we get people on there, they're going to naturally start exposing other team members to it, and then they should naturally just expand. It's been great to see that, but also it's been great to see one of our hypotheses come true as well, because there've been many things that we've said that we found out weren't right either. So it's good to put one in the win column as well.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think project management makes sense now more than 3 months ago?
For me, I think when I hear the term project management, I'm thinking efficiency in the way that you work. I'm thinking, if for project management to work, typically you're building an element of standardization in the way that you work as well. It's not always the case. Sometimes project management is case by case. right? But more often than not, you're building standardization in the way that you work as well. And all of that is aligned with building efficiencies within your tech stack, becoming more efficient, creating standardization. You do that by reducing the number of tools that you have. And I don't know if enforcing is the right word, but enforcing people to use this set of tools in a specific way. And that's how you standardize. The benefit of Jointflows is that we tick a couple of boxes, or more than a couple of boxes. And so technically we can displace a number of tools. And so you can still hit your mandate of reducing the number of tech that your team is using. And also because of where we are in our life cycle as well, we're a little bit more cost effective than those tools that we're displacing. So that's always a positive as well.
Do you think there's also like an element of maybe being a bit more confident about how we sell it? Well, not sell it, but how we explain it?
Yeah. I mean, hey, we've worked a lot on refining the way in which we, elevate a pitch, the way we speak about it. We started, and we'll come on to this, but we started doing cold calls as well. So we use a parallel dialer now as well. So we are, I think if I look at the calls that we do now versus what we did when we started cold calling, we've obviously got better. And as part of that, we've become a lot more concise in how we speak as well. So maybe it's the way in which it could be a confidence thing as well. But I think it also aligns with what businesses are actually going through right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but good segue to cold calling, which is something that we're doing. It's been interesting. Any experiences from? I know we've had some great. We've had some good calls where we've ended up booking meetings, which has been great. But equally, we've had some challenging calls where maybe the logic of the people we're speaking to, in my mind at least, don't make sense. Any specific calls stand out?
Well, like, don't get me wrong, I'm conscious my accent's not the most efficient when I'm on the phone, and I get a lot of sorry, can you say that again? Like, the line is really bad. Like, people are very politely asking me to repeat, and then I repeat, and it's just the line is just as bad, unfortunately. But outside of that, like, I'm already shocked by the amount of sales leaders who are not taking cold calls, but are asking their team to increase cold calling activities.
Yeah.
Like, how can you be credible internally when you're in front of your team, you're receiving a call, and you're saying in front of the team who's making cold calls, sorry, I'm not taking any cold calls. How do you build confidence in your team when you're actually showing such behavior? It's quite we challenge them right away now, which is quite fun, and it turns out to be quite efficient as well. But
I also think we didn't used to challenge them straight away. For me, at least, I used to be aware. I don't take cold calls, but okay, but have you got 30? By the time I spoke, they've hung up. Whereas now, if they say, to your point, we're like, hey, but do you have SDRs in your company? Yeah. Do they cold call? Yeah, I expect them to. So why don't you take cold calls?
how does that work then?
How does that work? I take cold calls because I expect my SDRs to make cold calls. It's the same thing. You can't take every cold call. Obviously, sometimes you're in a meeting and things like this. It's the people who say, I do not take cold calls.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, hang on a second. That's very different to I'm busy, I'm going into a meeting. I do not take cold calls. Well, then maybe you shouldn't have an SDR team making cold calls either.
Yeah.
So that's been quite.
And on this, like, I came across a lot of people starting meetings at 2 p.m. and 47 minutes. Like, it's 2:47 p.m. in the afternoon. Your meeting is not starting now. Like, don't do that. Oh, sorry, like, yeah, it's 1:26 p.m. You're not gonna jump on a meeting right now. Like, no one takes meeting at this kind of time. It's
just walking into a meeting.
Be quick, mate.
At the most awkward hour.
So,
yeah, I'm gonna try to call them out as well. For those of people who are listening, if you've got any tips on how to on some of the I guess barriers or challenges that you experience in calls, let us know, and let us know how you overcome those as well.
I think the strategy works as well because I've sold sales engagement in the past, and you kind of have to be consistent about how you're running the sequences to maximize the outcome of the sequences. But in our position, it's quite hard to be sticking to the steps and the interval between the steps as well, because we're gonna be dragged like left, right, and center. And yeah, once we're trying to prioritize and block our time, there's gonna be an element of priority. But what we are doing, just for the listeners, is we separated the cold calling and the sequencing. So anything in writing versus anything verbal, we are targeting the same people, but with essentially two lines of communications at the same time. So we're doing the cold calling on a single list, and then we use that single list with a sequence, and they end up having the same amount of touch points as if we were to run sequences. But what we tend to see is that you're actually much more, the ratio between activity and meeting booked is like 100x when you actually prioritize cold call as opposed to written communication.
So you're call first now, you'd say?
Oh, no, 100%. I would rather use a parallel dialer for an hour, bash out 100 calls, connect to like 10 people. I think the ratio we worked out was like 10%, 10%. And then convert 10% to a meeting, than spending, I don't know how long it would take me to personalize 100 emails 2 days and get no meetings, or like 0.5 meetings.
Yeah, not just that, but email outreach for me, I get it. I think there's a place for it, obviously, as part of a wider strategy. I'm not saying nobody should ever email, but it's a very saturated touch point. Like a lot of people, especially like if you're trying to get through to C-suite, which is typically what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to go C-suite, VP, head of. The amount of emails that these people are getting, it's very difficult to cut through the noise. Equally, I don't think that people get as many cold calls as they do emails. I also think, we did a podcast actually with somebody, I don't remember who, and they were saying that a lot of SDRs are very uncomfortable on phones now, but just purely because of the way that they've been brought up in a digital first world, where you don't naturally speak to people on the phone, right? Like when I was younger, if I wanted to speak to my mate, I'd have to call him, right? Whereas now you just have a big WhatsApp group with 20 people in it, and you just communicate in this way. And other than when you physically see them, you don't really need to speak on the phone. And so I think a lot of that filters through to SDRs being uncomfortable on the phone. So there is a bit of a requirement for leaders to make them feel more comfortable.
Yeah, so first thing, take your own cold calls. Like, I think it's take them and then make them. If you can't make a cold call, even as a sales leader, because you build no credibility. When I was at my old company, I would do the cold calling sessions, and I would be really bad at it, but I would do them. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, what we do, interestingly, as well, is we share a lot of recordings of our calls as well. So the parallel dialer we use records every call. So we don't just share the good ones, we share the bad ones as well.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this. I really jacked this one up. Like, let's talk about this. Like, what could you have done different? So I think there's an element of trust as well, where, I guess we're experienced enough. We shouldn't feel shy anyway, but there's an element of that as well within there, which is good. So yeah, cold calling has been good. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Yeah, do you like it? Do you like it now?
I do like it. Yeah. Because I did, even when I'm at my last company, I used to sit in on and do the cold calls as well. So we used to do what were they called, like dial day or something. So basically the idea was myself, all the AEs, and all the SDRs, basically for the whole day, you only dial. That's all you're doing. So I was quite accustomed to it anyway, but probably wasn't doing it as a regular cadence as we obviously do now. where the buck literally starts and stops with us. So we have to make sure we're doing it. So yeah, but it's been enjoyable. I'm liking it actually. And I find like the more you get into the session, the more comfortable it's like, when you go to a bar and you have a few drinks, the more drinks you get, more comfortable you get. Each dial is another drink. By the time I get to the 10th one, I'm loose. I'm ready to speak about anything.
I found the painful part is to actually dial, to find phone number, put the phone number in, and then wait for someone to pick up, hang up, dial the next one. And the parallel dialer for that is unreal. Like you just press one button and then you're gonna speak to someone. It might not be really good, or it might be a voicemail, but it doesn't take you any effort to actually just go on to the next call. So and the ratio of the success ratio is just crazy. Like I've been lucky, but I had one session of like
this is the only session Mick will ever talk about with cold calling.
We booked 2 meetings, and had I done 30 minutes of cold calling of email personalization, I would have written one email, 1.5.
Yeah, that's true. I have a question for you on that, on the cold calling stuff, on the parallel dialer stuff. Sorry. So as we grow as a company, what do you think the role of a parallel dialer would be? Is it something we would continue to do in your mind? Let's say you've got a team of 10 SDRs.
Yeah.
That's just for theoretically speaking. You've got 10 SDRs and whatever number of AEs you need to fit that. Would you think that those 10 SDRs should all be using a parallel dialer?
Yeah, for sure. I think the question is more around the size of the pool you can contact on like frequently enough so that they don't burn. I think once you've got 10 SDRs on a parallel dialer, you're kind of in a position where you should have the whole market accessible, basically. And our position is quite still very niche, where I think if we focus on UK Martech, UK sales tech, UK fintech, you could afford to have 2 BDRs full time on call outreaches, and I think most of it should be maybe 3 times a day, 3 times a week, cold calls, follow-ups by email, and then like a really high top, very, very top ICP call emails. But no, I don't think the rest. There's 2 things. The first is sales engagement platforms. They've ruined the fun for everybody because they're used now to be essentially a spam engine. And you've got companies who are fighting against sending templates, but it's very much about volume versus value. And it's starting to kind of revert back now because I think they've identified themselves that actually the game is around conversion and forecasting more than pipeline coverage. And you have to be good at that because pipeline is now crowded, but because of the success they've had, and they've had good success. And now you've companies who are doing multi mailbox systems. So essentially 10xing the sales engagement with even less personalization because everything is ChatGPT based or like similar stuff based. So it's going to be even more crowded. So
exactly.
Yeah, not good.
Very crowded, very saturated. I agree. What else have we got? Oh, I have a good topic. RevOps.
Yeah.
As a function. So they have systematically love RevOps, by the way. So don't want this to come across wrong. But systematically becoming part of our sales process for anybody we speak to. What's your view on their role as part of the buying process for our prospects?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love RevOps. Some of our investors are RevOps leaders. A lot of what we build is for RevOps, like completely honest with you. So we know they're important, and we know that they also have issues with bandwidth priorities. Like it starts failing when the ratio RevOps versus total employee number is beyond 20-1, basically. And we speak to prospects, and they're like a team of 5 for like 1,200 people in the company.
Yeah.
So that ratio is just like by nature, it's just gonna break. And they've got a tough job because they've got to be technical enough to be able to build stuff in Salesforce most of the time. And they have to be strategic because they have to prioritize what is going to be added to the tech stack or taken away from the tech stack. And I think it's kind of fair. It's not new, but it's fairly new versus the sales role, right? It's a new job, and they're here to essentially. Salespeople have made a mess. They've said yes too many times. Many tech technologies on the journey to renewal and churn. And nothing is connected, and so you've got data sets that are completely standalone that they don't connect. It's just and everything becomes a blind spot. Everything becomes a gap. So unfortunately, they have to take the hard role of saying no more than they say yes, because they have to. They're responsible for the integration, and then the return on investment is also based on how much of it is connected. The only issue I see is they kind of more and more put into a decision position where they choose the tech stack as opposed to kind of safeguarding it and then ring fencing it. And I think this is wrong. If for the simplest reason, that when was the last time your RevOps person ever spoken to a prospect or a client directly? Like, most of the time, the answer is never. They've never actually spoken to a client. So there are like basic things that I don't think they should be in charge of. They should definitely have veto rights to be like, no, this is too many. That this is gonna take too long to integrate for very little value add, and we can't do it because we've also said yes to X, Y, Z, and then give visibility on that. But there should not be, my opinion, responsible for choosing to start with and go like technology shopping and stuff like that.
I feel like the person who makes the decision ultimately needs to be the one whose metric it's impacting the most, which is typically, in our instance at least, is going to be aligned with revenue. So, the CRO, CEO, etc. as well. But I agree with you. I do think it's important they should be part of the process, absolutely. But there are companies where they've now got the sole responsibility to not just make the decision, but also, just do the whole process effectively and almost just run it by the budget holder at the end, which is an interesting development. But fortunately for us, our conversations with RevOps have been good so far.
It's good. And like we're kind of in a position where, because we're all sales internally, as in the co-founding team, we know that once we reach the sales team, the value is pretty obvious. We solve our own problems. So for us, it's like I'd rather start an opportunity with RevOps and then finish with sales than the other way around, because I know that if I can convince RevOps that this is valuable for XYZ, then I can move on to sales quite easily. Maybe one more question, 2 more, 1, 2.
Yeah, let's do it. So another area that we've been focusing on a lot, actually, has been product development and prioritization of product development as well. So we have big shopping lists. We don't necessarily all align on exactly what it needs to be. I have some ideas, you have some ideas, Matt has ideas, everyone's got ideas, and we've got a big list. How do you think, or what experiences have you had where you think this is how you should be prioritizing a roadmap? Because there's a lot of the items we on our roadmap, in my opinion, have got merit and have got value, but it's very difficult to determine what should take priority over another.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's hard, man. I think whatever you're selling needs to be mainly bugs free as quickly as possible. And at our stage, I think you have to be transparent about the fact that the paint is still fresh on some areas of the platform, blah, blah, blah. So there's an element of feedback and patience there. But the commercials are aligning with that. So that's the trade-off. And they get to dictate, but not dictate, but they get to strongly influence a lot of what we're building as well, which I think is beneficial for our clients, because like the current users we've got, they've got direct access to the CTO, CEO, they've got like direct access to the roadmap. Things are treated with the highest level of priority. We're not on a ticketing system. It's Slack based, so it's like instant communication. And for the money they pay, like it's actually quite quite valuable. So the point is, you should be in a position where you're getting rid of the majority of bugs quickly enough. And then the priority, I think, should be around what's going to unlock as much revenue as quickly as possible. Well, two things. In the short term, revenue generation. And in the mid-long term, company valuation.
Yeah.
So revenue generation, obviously, it feeds into company valuation, but it's more about unlocking new business opportunities that are in flight. And then company valuation is more about, like, do you connect with XYZ? Have you got specific specs that are valuable for scalability purposes, as opposed to just converting the pipe?
Yeah.
But
it's been interesting. Yeah, go on.
No, it's hard because we don't have unlimited engineering risks. So if there's a big bug, it means slowing down on the innovation side, and then if we do the innovation side, it means slowing down on bug fixing. So
we've been told we've been developing or innovating at neck-breaking speeds, was some of the feedback we've had. So that's been interesting. I think it's been valuable for us to have that direct feedback. I think it's great for them to have direct access to us, like to the founding team, right? But it's also equally been valuable to us, because I think having a lens of people who are not us on there, who are using it every day as well outside of us, we've been able to actually uncover innovation that's not just beneficial for the person who suggested it, but for the wider user base as well. For me, that's been unreal. Like, I've loved it. The ideas. It just means that the roadmap's getting bigger and bigger. The roadmap's getting bigger and bigger, though, and so that prioritization exercise becomes bigger and bigger as well.
What's
go on.
What the ratio do you think should be around? So the ratio between how much you do for just one client in terms of roadmap versus what is actually valuable for the rest of the client.
For everybody. I don't think it's a ratio thing. I think it's situation based. So what I mean by that is, if everything was free and nobody's paying for anything, you shouldn't, for us at least, with the amount of resource we have, we need to just be doing what's going to be working for everybody. So you have an idea and it's something that's going to be addressing issues for our wider client base. That's all we should be doing. We shouldn't be taking individual use cases for one client. However, when you start talking about money and people paying for things, then the scenario changes. Because if we're building something bespoke for an individual client that we know is going to be useless for the majority of our client base, if they're paying for it, then we should be considering it for sure. But if they're not, if all things are equal, in my opinion, just based on our resource, where we are, our setup, we shouldn't be doing single things for an individual client unless they're paying for it. So, yeah. So that didn't really answer your question. So I don't think there's a ratio. This is the answer to your question.
Very good, very
What,
good.
you think there's a ratio?
Well, I think it depends on how much money you can then unlock or how long you can stay relevant for with that use case or for that client. So that is more like on the renewal side. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think it's hard because it's either you build that one feature which is only relevant for that one client, but that secures, at this point in time, it could secure 30% of the IRR. So it might be worth it.
Yeah, I would do it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they're paying for it, then it's definitely something.
But there's also a decision to be made around where is that feature making you less relevant, actually less relevant with other clients as well, because it's out of scope.
I understand what you're saying. However, if I'm just thinking about Jointflows of that, just our product the way it is, we're very relevant across a very broad scope as it is. So I don't think it would impact us that much, unless obviously that bespoke feature that we're building for this individual client, takes a very long time to build. In which case, that's something you need to factor in as well. To be fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to cover off that you think our listeners will get value from? Thank you for listening, by the way. Our listeners on Spotify have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So appreciate it. Keep listening.
Well, let's speak about this. How do you think about the simultaneous success of the podcast and having, I don't know if I should say that, but almost having more inbound requests for the podcast than we do for Jointflows?
Man, one thing I've realized is everybody wants to build their brand. It doesn't matter who you are. So initially when we started the podcast, I think obviously it was we were doing an outreach, right? Hey, do you want to be on this podcast? Blah, 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 blah. We're very, very consistent with what we post about the podcast. If for anyone listening on the daily, if you follow myself, Mick, or Jointflows, or any of the people we've interviewed on LinkedIn, you're likely to see a post about the Revenue Revolution podcast. And because of that, it's generated so much interest that people just reach out. Hey, can I come on the podcast now? Like we had somebody who said no at the beginning of the year, actually, who circled back and said, hey, I'd love to come on the podcast.
Next is, can I come back?
That was class.
Okay, if I come back, sorry.
Sorry, actually, I think it's a good idea. Let me come on the podcast now. But it's been great, actually. I enjoy it.
I've had someone said,
just to be clear, we make no money from the podcast for people who are listening. This is literally, we just like doing it, so we do it. If somebody does want to pay something, we can do it though.
And we barely speak about Jointflows as well. Like it's just literally
not all. Literally, I think I plugged Jointflows once in the 20 odd episodes we've done.
Yeah,
probably, and it was like for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Other than that, but yeah, I think it's been great. just seeing the listeners go up. I love looking at the line graph.
Yeah.
Showing the listeners go through the roof is great. So yeah, it's been enjoyable.
And we've got
yeah.
So we're fairly competitive, as everybody knows now. And we were comparing some of the likes we've got on our podcast versus podcasts we've been on as guests, with numbers similar to a number of episodes similar to ours. And ours is 3 times as big. Sorry, guys.
Yes, a loyal fan base. Keep it up. Keep those 5 stars coming in as well. And who knows, maybe one day somebody will pay us to do it.
I've had a comment made. It was like, yeah, but you guys, like, it's unfair because you guys have a massive marketing team. I was like, what marketing team? Oh man, we don't have any marketing team at all.
Yeah. No. Exactly. No marketing team. Nobody pays us to do it. We just do it. So, you know.
Love a chat.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
All right, that's it.
Well, that's been great. I think for those of you who requested another plug, here it is. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll try to make them a little bit more frequent. But it does get busy. And I won't say that actually, it's slightly inappropriate, but some people take all of August off, and so it makes it really difficult to do things. So yeah, but we're through August now, so it's all right.
Like French people.
Huh?
Like French people.
Yeah, I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
I can say it, I'm French.
All right, guys. Well, look, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Revenue Revolution podcast, sponsored by Jointflows. Until next time.
See you later. Bye.